Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gabester here. This is another monk solo guide in Blackwing Descent, and this is Chimaeron. I'm doing a brewmaster spec for this, which is required, and here are the talents I'm going with. So the important things are Dampen Harm, Invoke When or Wan, and then the rest doesn't matter all that much, to be honest. And you also need a particular glyph for this as well, the glyph of Retreat. The other glyphs don't really matter, but for this strategy you're going to need Glyph of Retreat in addition to these talents. And that about covers it. So let's rewind and I'll get started. This is a pretty challenging fight, so there's quite a bit to cover. So first, a quick recap of the abilities here. If you aren't aware, you've just forgotten since you've done this zone. The basic idea is that Chimaeron hits really hard, and the only way to survive this is due to Finkel's mixture, which is a buff that you have on you at all times. And if you are above 10,000 health, you cannot go below 1 hit point. So any damage that would have killed you will be reduced to the effect that you're left at 1 health. However, what makes this an issue is that as a tank, you get stacks of this ability called Break, which increases the damage you take, but also reduces your healing, and it stacks up to 4 times. And beyond that, there's also a double attack, which occurs around every 12 seconds or so from Chimaeron himself. And of course, this means that the first attack in a double attack will always be reduced if you're above 10k, but the second attack can then kill you because you'll be at 1 hit point since they both occur simultaneously. So you have to figure out a way to prevent one of those attacks from hitting you or killing you when you are just basically at 10,000 health, pretty much the whole fight. So the good news is that you don't have to be anywhere above 10,000. It doesn't really matter how much ahead you are because Break is going to prevent most of your healing. So instead you're going to be relying primarily on rotations, using your abilities to the best that you can to prevent one of those double strikes from killing you whenever possible. So the first thing to get used to when practicing this encounter in a solo method is the fact that you're getting hit for such severe damage that your stagger damage, the ticks from Stagger, are plenty to actually kill you. If you are below that 10,000 mark, obviously another tick of over 10,000 is going to kill you. So it's really, really important that you get in the habit of clearing your stagger damage immediately when you get hit in this fight. It doesn't really matter how much you actually have your stagger for. The fact remains that if it ticks just after a melee hit that would have otherwise killed you, but instead brought you to 1 health, then you will die. So the point is, if you get hit, you should have a chi ready and immediately Purifying Brew to remove that. Consequently, you also need to be active in healing yourself back over 10k whenever you do take damage and go below that marker. So you don't have to worry about your health if it's above 10,000. It doesn't really matter what your health is at. But if it's below 10k, you just got hit, you should immediately heal yourself. Usually, 90% of the time, this will be Expel Harm, because Expel Harm will automatically always be available since you're already so low, and that's Brewmaster innate. So this will always heal you for enough to get you over 10k, even with 4 stacks of the Break debuff. So that's your main way to recover. You can also, of course, step into some orbs on either side of yourself, or have Chi Wave bounce to you if the timing is right, but don't rely on Chi Wave or something that's perhaps not going to land on time. If you get below 10k, just try to expel yourself, or if there's an orb, you can use that as well. But bottom line is when things like Massacre hit, they're going to do 600, 700, 800,000 damage, and you have to immediately purify and brew yourself, or you're screwed. Because the next time that tick hits, 2 seconds later, you'll die. So absolutely pure yourself and heal yourself very frequently. You have to get used to this pattern when you practice this fight. And it took me, I think, 19 attempts to eventually get the kill here. So it's not going to be trivial by any means. You have to get used to the healing and purifying. And then there's a second pattern that we'll talk about now, which has to do with double attack. Alright, so now that you're used to healing yourself back over 10k and immediately purifying any stagger damage, then the main thing here and the dangerous aspect of this fight is double attack. So the best way I found to deal with this, and it wasn't easy by any means, is sort of a rotation of your mitigation abilities. So you can see in the top left, this is the basic rotation. The idea here is to try to have some cooldown available to yourself every time double attack is occurring. And this doesn't mean that you will be able to repeat this and always guarantee that you'll live. There will be some randomness to it, but you're doing your best to mitigate that randomness as much as possible. So the first thing, the basic rule, is that you need to guard every other double attack. Now, double attack technically can occur every 12 seconds, and it usually will, but often there will be a delay when a massacre is cast or when he's going into a feud state. Of course, that delays it huge. So generally speaking, you will be able to guard every other cast of double attack. Now, when you have guard active, if you are above 10,000 health, you cannot die from a double attack. The reason for this is that it seems, for whatever reason, that the healing reduction debuff from break does not apply to absorbs, or at least to guard in this case. So guard is its full absorb value. And because of that, even with 4 stacks of break, the damage from the first hit of a double attack will not pierce through your full guard. And then the second hit will therefore be mitigated by the Finkel mixture as long as you're above 10k. So you cannot die if you have guard up, and that's really important. Now, because guard has a 30-second cooldown, and technically double attacks are every 12, since you're doing every other one, what you should try to get in the habit of is watching very closely when double attack is about to come up, and then immediately hit guard as soon as that you know that that's the next attack that's occurring. It's just a buff that Chimaeron gains, so you can use weak auras like I'm doing here, or just a regular look at the buff frame and see, you know, what your target's buffs are. But as soon as you see that and it's guard's turn, you know, to be used, immediately use guard, because you're not going to take any other damage that will soak up any of your absorb, and you want to get guard going on cooldown as quickly as possible. So the earlier you use it, the better. And then you won't have an issue when the guard is coming up off cooldown 2 double attacks from that point. You'll be able to use it again. And then by the time the 5th one is occurring, you should have actually had a massacre or a feud or something like that. So you'll be all right. And then between guards, you have to use unreliable methods, unfortunately. So the best thing to do start out with is using your shortest cooldowns. So you basically want to combine elusive brew for the 30% extra avoidance to hopefully just completely avoid one of the double attacks, along with dampen harm. Obviously dampen harm will reduce the hit by 50%, so it's not necessarily going to save you every time. Depends a little bit on your health, and you can't really afford to heal yourself very much in this fight above that 10k mark. But if it does absorb one of those hits, along with a good chance to completely avoid another hit, then you should be okay most of the time. And that's what I found. And then for the other time, when you don't have dampen harm available, because it's going to be absorbed by the big hits like feud or just regular melee and whatnot, then you have to rely on elusive brew and fortifying brew instead. And It's not quite as good as Dampen Harm, but again, it will hopefully suffice to push you through. And so the basic idea is Guard is your highest priority, then Elusive Brew and Dampen Harm are your second, and then Elusive Brew and Fortifying Brew are final resort. Now you should also be able to theoretically use Zen Meditation on a double attack. But for some reason, I had a lot of trouble with that. And I don't know if it's just the order of operations in terms of which ability is mitigating which damage hit first compared to the Finkel mixture versus the Zen Meditation. But in theory, the first hit should be mitigated 90%. So you'd take 10% of that damage. So if a melee hit is around 250,000 or so, which it seems to be, you'd take 25,000. So if your health was greater than 35,000 when that occurred, then even if the second hit does connect with you, which your Zen Meditate will be broken by then because it breaks on melee hits, so it'll break the first hit of the double attack. But theoretically, you then should be reduced by Finkel for the second hit. But for some reason, on multiple occasions, this did not work as planned, and I couldn't figure out why. So just a word of caution, if you try to use Zen Meditate, you may have issues with it. But it could just be bad luck for me for some reason, and you might want to try it. Now, once you're used to handling the resets of your stagger, healing yourself up, and dealing with double attack, then of course the main goal is to kill Chimaeron. So doing this requires transferring into Phase 2. And Phase 2 starts at 20% health on Chimaeron, and you will immediately be debuffed with an additional debuff that reduces your healing by 99%. So essentially, you can no longer heal yourself once you get below that 10k threshold, and you'll be doomed once you get hit again. So the goal here is to reset your break stack as close to this transition point as possible, allowing you to heal yourself up to full or near full before this occurs. And the way that I found to do this is to utilize the Tiger Pet along with the Glyph of Retreat that we mentioned in the beginning, which of course allows you to temporarily reduce your threat, sort of like a fade ability from priests, for 10 seconds after you roll. So during this feud at 25%, I stop attacks so I can keep Chimaeron's health somewhat high. At about 10 seconds left on the feud, I summon my Tiger Pet, and this gives him 10 seconds to get some threat established. As soon as the feud ends, I roll, as you see just there. This transitions my threat to the Tiger temporarily, and the first break that casts right after the feud actually ends will hit the Tiger. I also spend this time dropping a teleport out of melee range, and then the next break that's going to occur will happen about 1 or 2 seconds before my current break stack is about to be dropped, so about before it fades. So that's why I have the teleport. So with about 1 to 2 seconds left, I quickly teleport away out of melee range, and this forces Chimaeron to be unable to use break because I'm not in melee range. And then he has to run into range of me. And by the time he gets in melee range and then uses break again, it's allowed my 4-stack of break to drop off. So I get another break shortly after, but it's only a 1-stack at that point. So here I'll go through it again now that you know the basics. So 25% I stop doing damage because I don't want to push him too early. And during this feud, wait for about 10 seconds left and summon the Tiger Pet. And you need to have your Tiger Pet out a little bit early so that he has time to build up some threat. Otherwise, he won't be on the threat table. After this massacre occurs to end the feud, roll away. And there you can see the pet is the target of Chimaeron now. So I use this time to drop my teleport. You could, of course, put your teleport down early. I just forgot about it, so I did it there. And now I have a big warning to tell me when 2 seconds are left, and then I port away and run out of melee range a little bit. And that allows me to get out of range during that break cooldown. So the next time break is used, it's after my 4-stack is dropped. Now I have another feud happening, and I only have 1 stack of break, so now I want to heal myself up during this feud. And the idea is to transition Chimaeron over 20% during this feud so that you don't get another massacre, because obviously a massacre is at the start and the end of every feud, and that would just reset your health back to 0. So you want to transition once all your cooldowns are ready, and you can push the phase basically. So once you get a good transition going, you're full health or near it, you have 1 break stack, you can push Chimaeron over that 20% threshold and start the final phase. And this part is not too difficult. It's really just maximize your survival. You still have Finkel's mixture, so you will be able to prevent 1 death from 1 hit, but you still basically are doing the normal fight. It's just you can't heal yourself anymore. So you want to start with full health and as much cooldown of usage as possible, and keep using your same guard alternation technique for the double attacks, and otherwise just maximize your DPS. So use your DPS potion during this time, and anything else you have that will allow you to kill Chimaeron faster than he will kill you. This was the first time I saw this phase, so it's not all that difficult really. It's just leading up to this point and getting a good transition is the difficult part. So yeah, pretty challenging fight to solo, I have to say. It was a lot of fun though to figure out, and kind of a fun little puzzle. So that is Solo Guide for Chimaeron for Monk. As always, good luck, thanks for watching, and if you like this, please subscribe.